In recent months, healthcare professionals across the United States have sounded the alarm over a troubling trend. Immigrants, particularly those undocumented, are increasingly avoiding medical care due to fears of deportation. This phenomenon has emerged amid a backdrop of heightened immigration enforcement policies which have intensified anxiety among vulnerable communities. Reports from doctors, nurses, and social workers indicate that individuals facing serious medical conditions, including chronic illnesses and acute injuries, are choosing to forego necessary treatment rather than risk being apprehended by immigration agents. One particularly striking instance involved Emily Borghardt, a social worker who discovered a man lying on the sidewalk with a gunshot wound. Despite the severity of his injury, he refused treatment, expressing his fear of being deported if he sought help. He said, "If I go to the emergency department, that will put me on their radar," Borghardt recounted. This incident is emblematic of a broader trend observed since the Trump administration rescinded protections that previously safeguarded healthcare settings from immigration enforcement. As a result, healthcare professionals are witnessing increasing rates of patient anxiety, cancellation of appointments, and a general reluctance to seek care. A survey conducted by the Kaiser Family Foundation revealed that 31% of immigrants reported that concerns regarding their immigration status negatively impacted their health. A significant portion of respondents indicated they were struggling with basic needs such as sleep and nutrition due to heightened stress and anxiety. This growing trepidation has direct implications for public health, as untreated conditions can lead to worsening health outcomes and increased healthcare costs. We're really creating not just very serious health risks but economic risks in the long run for our country, warned Dr. Julie Linton, a pediatrician with the American Academy of Pediatrics. The adverse effects of avoiding healthcare are particularly acute among immigrant populations that already face high rates of chronic conditions such as diabetes and hypertension. An illustrative case is Maria, a 47-year-old immigrant from El Salvador who canceled a vital appointment for her prediabetes management out of fear of being detected by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. "I can put myself at risk for my children. But if it's for my own health, I prefer to let it go," she explained, underscoring the complex decisions faced by many in similar situations. This trend is not limited to adults. Children of immigrant families are also affected. A pediatrician in California reported a 30% increase in missed appointments among children as parents fear taking them to clinics or pharmacies. The implications are dire. As children miss essential vaccinations and treatment for chronic conditions which could lead to long-term health consequences and increased healthcare disparities, healthcare providers are grappling with how to navigate these challenges. Some medical facilities have started implementing strategies to reassure patients of their rights and to protect them from potential immigration enforcement. For instance, hospitals in New York have begun distributing informational cards in multiple languages that remind patients of their rights regarding immigration checks. Others have initiated home visitation programs to reach patients who are too afraid to visit clinics. Despite these efforts, the pervasive fear among immigrant populations continues to threaten public health. Dr. Carolina Miranda, a family physician in the Bronx, noted that patients with serious health concerns such as potential brain tumors are missing critical appointments due to fears of deportation. The situation has created a compelling dilemma for healthcare providers, who are torn between their ethical obligation to provide care and the realities of the current immigration landscape. As the Biden administration seeks to navigate this complex issue, advocates are calling for a re-evaluation of policies that deter vulnerable populations from seeking necessary medical care. The consequences of continued avoidance of healthcare could lead to not only individual health crises but also broader public health challenges that affect communities nationwide. The discourse surrounding healthcare access and immigration enforcement continues to evolve, with significant implications for the future of public health in the United States. The future remains uncertain, but the ongoing dialogue highlights the need for comprehensive reforms to ensure that healthcare remains accessible and safe for all individuals regardless of their immigration status. As conversations about health equity and rights progress, the hope is that systemic changes will alleviate the fears currently keeping many in the shadows, allowing them to seek the care they desperately need. In a significant week for both international and domestic politics, varied events unfolded that highlighted shifting dynamics on the global stage and the local economic landscape. From Russia's assertive commemoration of World War II to the ripple effects of federal spending cuts in the D.C. area, the current climate reflects a blend of confidence and concern. On Friday, May 9, 2025, Russia celebrated the 80th anniversary of the defeat of Nazi Germany with a grand military parade in Moscow. This event was marked by a display of military prowess and national pride, showcasing Russia's armed forces and underscoring the Kremlin's narrative of strength amidst ongoing geopolitical tensions. This is not just a celebration of our past, it is a reminder of our commitment to protect our sovereignty, stated President Vladimir Putin during the event. The parade featured a variety of modern military equipment and was attended by veterans who fought in the war, emphasizing a collective memory that continues to shape Russian identity. Simultaneously, the political landscape in the United States saw a significant shakeup as President Donald Trump moved to fire several Democrats from the Consumer Product Safety Commission. This abrupt action has raised concerns regarding the potential impacts on consumer safety regulations. Trump asserted that the commission had strayed from its mission and expressed his intent to ensure that consumer protection remains a priority. Critics argue that this decision could undermine essential oversight, potentially putting consumers at risk. The integrity of our safety standards should not be compromised by political maneuvering, warned one consumer advocate, highlighting the delicate balance between governance and public welfare. As these political events unfolded, the D.C. area began to feel the deepening impacts of federal spending cuts. Local businesses and families are grappling with the consequences of reduced federal investment, leading to a slowdown in economic activity. Reports indicate that many families are reconsidering their financial futures, with some contemplating leaving the capital for more affordable living conditions. With rising costs and diminishing support, it's becoming increasingly difficult to stay afloat here, lamented a local resident, echoing the sentiments of many who are struggling in the current economic climate. The effects of these cuts are particularly poignant for families already facing financial strain as they contend with rising costs for essential services. The situation is further compounded by families potentially losing access to critical resources that support education and healthcare. As one local economist noted, without federal support, we risk not only the current stability of our economy but also the long-term growth prospects of the D.C. area. Amid these challenges, the tech sector continues to be a beacon of innovation and opportunity. Companies are adapting to the evolving landscape, with many pivoting to address the new economic realities by exploring cost-effective solutions and emphasizing remote work. However, the resilience of this sector remains contingent upon stable federal policies that encourage growth and investment. As the week culminated in these pivotal events, the future remains uncertain. The juxtaposition of Russia's assertive military display and the unfolding economic challenges in the United States paints a complex picture of global and domestic affairs. Observers will be keenly watching how these developments influence international relations and local economies in the months to come, as both nations navigate their respective challenges. The interplay between political decisions and economic realities will undoubtedly shape the trajectory of future events. In a world increasingly shaped by economic shifts and ethical dilemmas, recent news highlights troubling developments across various sectors, from corporate layoffs to local community grievances. These stories serve as a reminder of the complex interplay between business practices, social responsibility, and the human cost associated with profit-driven motives. On the global stage, Panasonic Holdings has announced a significant restructuring plan that will see the company cut approximately 10,000 jobs worldwide. This decision, revealed on May 9, 2025, comes in response to a challenging economic landscape characterized by rising material costs and declining demand in key markets. A spokesperson for Panasonic acknowledged that the layoffs were a difficult but necessary step to streamline operations and ensure long-term sustainability. The company aims to refocus its efforts on core areas like automotive batteries and smart home technologies, which are expected to drive future growth. However, this move has sparked concerns about the impact on employees and local economies, particularly in regions heavily reliant on Panasonic's workforce. Meanwhile, a troubling narrative is unfolding in Ukraine, where corruption surrounding the treatment of war dead has come under scrutiny. Reports indicate that unscrupulous individuals are profiting from the remains of those who have died in the ongoing conflict, raising ethical questions about the exploitation of tragedy for financial gain. Investigative efforts have unveiled a network of deceit that not only tarnishes the sanctity of the deceased but also exacerbates the grief of their families. Experts warn that such corruption can undermine public trust in institutions during a time of national crisis, complicating recovery efforts and further destabilizing the region. In a more localized context, Kansas City is grappling with a significant number of vacant lots, leading residents to blame a single company for the blight. This situation reflects broader issues of urban decay and mismanagement as community members express frustration over the lack of accountability and the perceived negligence of corporate entities. Local activists argue that the vacant spaces not only diminish property values but also hinder community development and cohesion. As these discussions gain traction, they highlight the urgent need for collaboration between corporations and local governments to revitalize affected neighborhoods. In the energy sector, recent market talks signal shifting dynamics as companies navigate the transition to more sustainable practices amid fluctuating energy prices. Analysts suggest that the current environment presents both challenges and opportunities for businesses in the utilities sector. With calls for greener solutions growing louder, companies are being pushed to innovate and adapt, balancing profitability with environmental responsibility. This evolving landscape may lead to significant changes in how energy is produced and consumed, ultimately impacting consumers and industries alike. As these stories unfold, they serve as a stark reminder of the complexities and moral responsibilities that accompany economic decisions. The coming months will likely reveal further developments in corporate restructuring, community activism, and the ongoing battle against corruption. Stakeholders across the spectrum must remain vigilant and proactive to ensure that progress does not come at the expense of ethical standards and community welfare. The intersection of business and social responsibility will continue to be a critical focus shaping the future of industries and communities alike. In a bold departure from traditional Republican tax policy, President Donald Trump is advocating for an increase in income taxes on the wealthiest Americans. This proposal comes as the president seeks to finance broader tax cuts aimed at middle and lower income workers, a move that has sparked both intrigue and backlash within his party. As Trump embarks on negotiations with congressional Republicans on this contentious fiscal package, the implications of this tax increase could be profound for the American economy and the political landscape. Trump's proposal seeks to raise the income tax rate for individuals earning more than $2.5 million annually from the current 37% to nearly 40%. This suggestion, presented on his Truth Social platform, reflects a strategic shift as he attempts to garner support for his broader tax reform agenda, which includes extending the tax cuts enacted during his first term in 2017 that are set to expire next year. In any event, Republicans should probably not do it. But I'm okay if they do. Trump stated, acknowledging the potential political fallout while framing the tax increase as a necessary sacrifice to benefit working-class Americans. This tax increase represents a notable break from the party's long-standing commitment to low taxes for high earners, drawing criticism from conservative factions who argue that such a policy parallels Democratic initiatives. Anti-tax group Americans for Tax Reform vehemently opposed the proposal, with one representative stating raising the top tax rate to 39.6% is a Kamala Harris proposal. She lost the election to President Trump. No need to adopt her tax hike. The tension illustrates the internal conflict within the Republican Party as it balances its traditional principles with the evolving priorities of its members and constituents. While Trump's tax hike proposal is significant, it is part of a larger legislative effort that includes discussions about eliminating the preferential tax treatment on hedge fund and private equity profits known as carried interest. Additionally, lawmakers are contemplating raising the state and local tax SALT deduction cap, which would allow property owners to deduct up to $30,000 from their tax bills, significantly benefiting affluent neighborhoods. The outcomes of these negotiations could redefine the fiscal landscape, particularly as Trump navigates the complexities of a Congress divided on fiscal priorities. Compounding these legislative efforts is the ongoing global trade war initiated by Trump in April, which has shifted focus away from domestic tax policy. This trade conflict, characterized by high tariffs imposed on international partners, has created economic uncertainty that may further complicate the passage of any tax legislation. As the president's second term unfolds, the interplay between these various economic initiatives will be critical in determining his administration's legacy and the Republican Party's electoral prospects. Looking ahead, the coming months will be pivotal as Trump and congressional Republicans work to solidify their fiscal agenda. The potential for increased taxes on the wealthy alongside significant tax cuts for the middle class poses a complex challenge that could reshape the political narrative leading into the next election cycle. As debates continue, the administration's ability to unify its base around these proposals will be closely scrutinized, with implications that could resonate well beyond the halls of Congress. In an unexpected turn of events, the White House has intervened in the selection of the Pentagon's chief of staff, a move that underscores the rising tensions and challenges facing Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Amidst a backdrop of internal strife and scrutiny over personnel decisions, the Biden administration has taken the unusual step of blocking Hegseth as preferred candidate for the role, Marine Colonel Ricky Buria opting instead to appoint someone of its choosing. This decision is seen as part of a broader effort to stabilize the Pentagon's leadership structure and mitigate further missteps that have plagued Hegseth's office in recent weeks. Sources familiar with the situation revealed that the White House's intervention comes after a turbulent period that saw Hegseth's office embroiled in a controversial leak investigation which resulted in the ousting of 3 senior aides. The fallout has raised questions about Hegseth's leadership capabilities, particularly as he faces increasing scrutiny from both internal and external stakeholders regarding his management style and decisions. Ricky will not be getting the chief position, one insider stated, highlighting Buria's perceived lack of experience and political acumen, as well as a significant level of discontent among White House staff regarding his candidacy. The Pentagon, with its vast budget exceeding $800 billion and oversight of over 2 million troops, requires a stable and effective leadership apparatus, especially during times of geopolitical uncertainty. However, Hegseth's office currently operates with a significantly reduced staff comprising only about 5 senior advisors, leading to operational inefficiencies. There's so much that's not happening because no one is managing the front office, an official lamented, indicating the detrimental impact on decision-making processes within the defense establishment. Colonel Buria, who previously served as a junior military assistant, was seen as a controversial pick due to his limited experience and involvement in the office's internal conflicts. His recent failure to pass a polygraph test during the leak investigation further complicated his standing, culminating in the White House's decision to sideline him from the chief of staff position. In a compromise, it appears Buria will remain in a senior advisory role, albeit without the authority that comes with the chief position. This intervention not only reflects the White House's desire to exert control over key defense appointments but also signals a broader strategy to insulate Hegseth from further controversies that could jeopardize his standing in the administration. As the Pentagon navigates these challenges, the implications for U.S. defense policy and military readiness loom large, particularly given the current global security environment. Looking ahead, the focus will be on how Hegseth adapts to this shifting dynamic and whether the newly appointed chief of staff can effectively restore order and confidence within the Pentagon. As the administration continues to grapple with leadership issues, the potential for further developments remains high, particularly with looming international threats that demand a cohesive and capable defense infrastructure. In a significant setback for transportation advocates in Pennsylvania, a House committee has recently rejected a proposed amendment aimed at safeguarding the restoration of passenger rail service between Scranton and New York City. This project, which has long been anticipated by local officials and residents alike, is seen as a critical step in enhancing regional connectivity and fostering economic growth in Northeast Pennsylvania. The amendment, supported by Republican U.S. Representative Rob Bresnahan, was part of a broader budget reconciliation proposal championed by congressional Republicans to further key elements of President Donald Trump's agenda. Despite its rejection, experts say the project remains on track. The proposed rail service would connect Scranton to Manhattan's Penn Station with various stops along the way, including Mount Pocono, East Stroudsburg, and Newark. Bresnahan, who represents Pennsylvania's 8th congressional district, has been a vocal advocate for the Scranton to NYC rail initiative. Following his election victory over former Democratic Congressman Matt Cartwright, he pledged to continue supporting the project, emphasizing its potential to stimulate local economic activity. "Jobs in our growing economy shouldn't be partisan," Bresnahan stated. "I will continue to advocate for the return of Amtrak to NEPA, allowing our region to continue its momentum as a growing economic, logistics, and tourism powerhouse." The project was accepted into the Federal Corridor Identification and Development Program in late 2023, marking a significant advancement in its planning stages. The second step of this three-step program involves completing a service development plan, which is critical before moving on to the final phase that could unlock substantial federal funding for construction. According to a study conducted by Amtrak, the restoration of this service could generate an impressive $84 million in new economic activity annually, creating jobs on both sides of the Pennsylvania-New Jersey border. Larry Malski, president of the Pennsylvania Northeast Regional Railroad Authority, expressed gratitude for Bresnahan's ongoing support despite the committee's decision. "If the amendment had passed, it would have provided an extra layer of protection, but we remain appreciative of Congressman Bresnahan for his commitment to the project," Malski remarked. The rejection of the amendment is indicative of the broader partisan dynamics at play within the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, where Republicans hold a 5-member majority. Other amendments aimed at securing funding for Amtrak operations and ensuring transparency and potential rail grant reductions were also dismissed by the committee, illustrating the challenges facing transportation initiatives under the current political landscape. Looking ahead, while the recent committee decision poses hurdles, it does not appear to derail the Scranton to NYC rail project. Advocates remain hopeful that continued bipartisan support at various levels of government will ultimately pave the way for this long-awaited service. If successful, the restoration of passenger rail service would mark a historic return to rail transport between these two cities for the first time since 1970, potentially revitalizing the region's economy and enhancing access for travelers. As discussions continue and plans evolve, stakeholders will be closely monitoring developments to ensure this critical infrastructure project comes to fruition.